The way he said it was colder than anger. "We need the room," he murmured, flipping through junk mail like it was just another Tuesday. "Derek's coming back. With the baby. Guest room's not big enough." My mouth opened, but nothing came out. It was like my voice had been packed up already. He looked up briefly. "You're almost 18. It's time." Time for what? To disappear? I stood there, still gripping the glass of water I'd brought in 5 minutes earlier. The condensation slid down my fingers, unnoticed. "So, I'm being replaced?" He blinked slowly, as if the question didn't require a response. Not a hint of guilt. Not even a pause. I wanted to scream. Ask if he remembered Mom's voice when she told me, "No matter what your father says, you belong." But I didn't. Instead, I turned, walked to my room, closed the door softly, no slamming, no scene, just silence. The only thing he ever taught me to master. The first time I tasted blood, I wasn't in a fight. I was 6, and Derek had me face down in the hallway carpet, his knee pressing into my back, my arms twisted behind me like I was some kind of threat. I remember the blur of the light above, the sound of the TV in the other room, and the way I bit my lip. Not because it hurt, but because I knew crying made it worse. "Boys' roughhouse," my father said from the doorway, his voice even, arms folded, eyes cold. "Toughen up. You're too soft." I wasn't soft. I was scared. There's a difference. That moment set the tempo for the years that followed. Derek bruised, Dad ignored. Mom tried to stitch the silence with kindness when she could. Sometimes she'd find me in the hallway, curled up and quiet after one of Derek's games. She never yelled, just knelt down and touched her forehead to mine. "They don't see you," she'd whisper, "but one day they will. You'll shine so bright they'll wish they had treated you better." I believed her. Not because it felt true, but because she needed me to believe it. She died when I was 15. Lung cancer. Quick and cruel, she faded like light dimming underwater, and with her went the only warmth in the house. After that, my father became quieter. Not grieving, just hollow. And Derek? Derek came home less, but when he did, it was like I'd stepped back into my childhood. The jabs, the smirks, the casual violence. Except now I was taller, quieter, harder to pin. But he still knew where to aim. "Words. Now, Mom always babied you," he said once, reaching for another beer. "That's why you're so weak." I said nothing. I'd learned that was safer. Years later, after I'd been kicked out and was trying to stitch together what was left of myself, I got a letter, an invitation. Mrs. Barkley was retiring, my 4th-grade teacher. I almost threw it out, but something made me go. She found me in the hallway after the speeches, her hand trembling around a paper cup of punch. "I wondered if you'd come," she said softly. "You look taller now, but you have the same eyes." I tried to smile, but I think it broke halfway there. "I don't want to ruin your night," I started. She cut me off gently. "It's yours I ruined. Or didn't protect, maybe." Her purse clicked open. A folder, worn, creased, and faded with time, slid into my hands. I filed a report back then, about what I saw between you and your brother, about your father's response. They said it was a misunderstanding, that your family was stable. She looked down, her voice thinning. "I should have pushed harder." I couldn't speak. The hallway around us had blurred. Just this moment, still and devastating. "I kept a copy," she said, eyes rimmed red. "Didn't feel right to throw it out. I always knew the truth would find its moment." I held the folder like it was glass. It was glass. It was the shattered reflection of a childhood I'd been told I imagined. Proof that I hadn't lied, that I wasn't weak, that someone had seen, and maybe, just maybe, someone still could. It started with a number I didn't recognize. No voicemail, no second ring. Just silence after the screen went black again. I thought nothing of it. Thought maybe it was a scam call or a wrong number. Then, around noon, I heard tires on gravel outside my grandparents' house. Heavy ones. My grandfather was at work. My grandmother was out back, hanging laundry. I knew before I opened the door. The way the air changed. The way my stomach dropped without explanation, like muscle memory that hadn't forgotten pain. I opened it anyway. They stood there like props from a scene I didn't want to be in. My father and Derek side by side, like nothing had ever broken between us. Except everything had. Derek looked thinner, older, like desperation had taken root in his jawline. My father, he just looked tired. But it wasn't the kind of tired that came from grief or age. It was the kind that came from secrets. We just need to talk, he said, not even waiting for me to invite them in. I didn't move. You kicked me out. That's not what this is about, he said quickly. It's exactly what this is about, I replied. Derek stepped forward. Look, I know we're not close, okay? But we need your help. His voice wasn't aggressive, it was controlled. Almost too controlled. Like he'd rehearsed it. Like he wanted to sound like someone trustworthy. But his hands betrayed him. White-knuckled, wrapped around his car keys, like they might shatter if he let go. We're in trouble, my father said, lowering his voice. Serious trouble. And let me guess, I said, folding my arms. It's somehow my problem now. He winced. Derek's employer, he's accusing him of stealing, misappropriation of funds. It's a misunderstanding. But they're threatening legal action? And what do I have to do with that? I asked, even though I already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. Derek looked straight at me. We need you to say I was sending you the money, that it was for your college. A mix-up in the bank logs. You won't get in trouble, it's just to buy us time. I stared at him for a moment, then laughed, quietly, bitterly. So, you want me to commit fraud? On your behalf? No one has to know, my father said quickly. It's just a few lines in a statement, that's all. You'd be protecting your family. You mean the one that threw me out like garbage? I asked. Silence. He tried again. I'm your father. Were you? My voice cracked. Because I don't remember that part. I'm begging you, he whispered. And for the first time in my life, I saw tears in his eyes. Not rage, not contempt, but real, pleading grief. And I hated that it still made something twist inside me. I didn't answer. I just walked back inside and shut the door. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched the ceiling for hours, hands behind my head, heart pulsing with something between fury and fear. Then I called Ethan. He picked up halfway through the first ring. You good? No, I said, but I need you. I told him everything, about the visit, the request, the way Derek looked like he was walking a tightrope with gasoline under him. Ethan was quiet for a second, then, you want me to dig? If you can, I whispered. I'll find out who Derek really is. 3 days later, he called again. Are you sitting down? I was on the porch, the wind wrapping cold fingers around my ankles. Should I be? Derek's not just Derek. The pause after that sentence hit harder than anything else. He went by a different name during college. Legally changed it 2 years ago after cutting a plea deal in another state. Embezzlement. Similar scam, company funds, wire transfers, disappearing deposits. Got probation. Case was sealed under terms of cooperation. No press, nothing public. I blinked. He changed his name? Yeah. And get this. The original name, still flagged in some private databases, took me a while to connect the dots. And my father? Ethan hesitated. There's no way he didn't know. The plea deal required supervision. Guess who signed off as guardian back then? My voice was a whisper. He covered it up. Looks like it. This isn't the first time he's helped Derek run. It's just the first time they've tried to drag you into it. That night, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. Not admiring anything, just studying the face they both claimed to love once and never learned how to see. How do you unlearn being disposable? How do you stand firm when the people who raised you made their version of love conditional? I didn't have those answers, but I had a name now. The real one Derek buried. I had Ethan. I had Mrs. Barkley's folder tucked in my drawer. I had a voice that hadn't always been mine. And maybe for the first time, I had the truth. Not the kind they told me to believe. The kind I could finally carry without shame. It started the way most unexpected things do, quietly. I was behind the counter at the bookstore, restocking the front display with paperbacks that all promised transformation or escape. Stories I didn't believe in anymore. It had been a long shift, and I was just waiting for the clock to slide past 5:00 so I could disappear into the kind of silence that didn't ask anything of me. That's when I noticed her. She didn't enter like someone who needed help. She stepped in like someone rehearsing a line they weren't ready to say. Her eyes swept the room quickly, anxiously, landing on me as if I might vanish if she blinked. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Tired in the bones, thin fingers gripping the strap of a worn-out purse that had been stitched too many times. Excuse me, she said quietly. Are you David? I straightened, startled. Yeah? Her eyes flickered. David, son of Thomas R.? There was something about the way she said his name. Not angry, not ashamed, just tired of holding it in. I'm sorry, she added quickly. I wouldn't come here unless I had to. My stomach tightened. Who are you? She pulled out a photo from her purse, hesitant. It wasn't a threat. It was a bridge she was afraid to walk over. He's the father of my daughter, she said. Emma. There are moments in life that don't feel real when they happen. Only when you look back at them frozen and dissected do they take shape. This was one of those. I'm not here for drama, she continued. I'm not asking you to talk to him or to get involved if you don't want to. I don't know who else to go to. He hasn't sent anything in over a year. Not a word, not a dollar, nothing. She didn't cry. She said it like someone who'd stopped expecting apologies. And Emma? I asked slowly. She glanced at the photo in her hand but didn't hand it over yet. 9. She's in 4th grade. She's been getting bullied at school. She's shy, too kind, too quiet. Just like, she stopped herself. Her voice softened. And she's asking questions I don't know how to answer anymore. I didn't know what to say. What do you say when the man who erased you from his life had built a secret one without you? She's been asking if she has any brothers or sisters. I told her, maybe. I told her there's someone somewhere. I didn't promise anything. I didn't even nod. But I asked where she was, just to see, just to know if this child was real or some apparition summoned by another one of my father's unfinished lies. The woman hesitated, then gave me the address of the community center down the street. She's in the art room for the afternoon. I didn't know if I should bring her. I told her to wait. I needed 5 minutes. She nodded and stepped outside. No pressure, just that look of someone hoping you'll take the weight off their chest, even just a little. I walked slowly to the center, each step louder than the last, like it was echoing against something I hadn't dared touch in years. The receptionist pointed me down a hallway. The room smelled like glue and dry paint. There were 5 kids. 4 of them were laughing. One was not. She was at the corner table, head bent over a sketchbook. Her legs swung just above the floor, sneakers untied, mismatched socks. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, a blue smudge on her cheek. She looked up, and I froze, because it was my mother's face. Not her exact features, but something deeper, the shape of the eyes, the way they blinked slowly like they were afraid to hope, the hesitation in the smile, the instinct to brace for disappointment. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. She tilted her head like she was trying to figure me out. You're tall, she said. I laughed, startled. You think? She smiled, small and crooked. My teacher says my drawings feel sad, but I don't draw sad things. She pushed the sketchbook toward me, a bird in flight. Thin lines, careful strokes. It looked like it was escaping something invisible. That's beautiful, I said. She beamed, not like a child waiting for praise, but like someone who didn't hear it often. My mom says I should draw things I want to be, she added. Birds don't have to stay anywhere. I nodded, throat tight, and that's a good thing to want. I think you're my brother, she said suddenly. I didn't answer. I just sat down beside her. The chair creaked under my weight. Do you think I'm weird? She asked. No, I whispered. She leaned in closer. Mom says I'm special, but kids don't like special. Sometimes, I said, it takes time for the world to catch up to special. She blinked at that. That sounds like something Mom would say. I smiled, but my chest ached. I stayed for an hour, maybe 2. We didn't talk about our father. She didn't ask. I didn't bring it up. It didn't matter. Not in that room, not in those moments. When I finally stood to leave, she handed me a page torn from her sketchbook. For you. It was a bird again, but this time there was a second one flying beside it. I thanked her. I meant it more than she could know. When I stepped outside, her mom was waiting near the curb. I didn't mean to drop this on you, she said softly. You didn't, I replied. Will you come again? I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just looked back toward the window where Emma sat watching me go, her hand pressed against the glass. And in that moment, everything I thought I wanted, revenge, justice, closure, shifted. I didn't want justice for him anymore. I wanted it for her. It was nearly midnight when the knock came. Not loud, just deliberate. Like whoever stood on the other side of the door wasn't there by accident, but also didn't want to wake the house too harshly. The rain had been tapping the windows all evening. Steady, soft, almost calming. But this knock cut through it. I hesitated. My grandfather was already asleep. My grandmother never really slept. Still, the hallway was dark, silent, heavy. I pulled on my hoodie and walked barefoot to the door. When I opened it, the porch light caught the edge of her umbrella first, then her face, young but weathered. Dark circles beneath her eyes, like she hadn't had a proper night of sleep in years. She was soaked from the waist down, rain clinging to the hem of her jeans and the cuffs of her sleeves. The umbrella she held had a bent spoke, like it had fought one too many winds and lost. She didn't introduce herself at first, just looked at me like I was both her last resort and her worst option. "You're David, right?" she asked, her voice scratchy from the cold or something else. I nodded slowly. "Derek's brother?" There was a pause between the question and my answer, long enough for thunder to roll in the distance, soft and tired. "I have," I said eventually. She gave a short, humorless laugh. "Figures. I didn't ask her name. I didn't need to. People only show up in the middle of the night with one thing, something heavy they can't carry alone anymore." "I'm Jasmine," she said anyway, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. "We had a thing, years ago. He left before our son turned 2. I didn't respond. My throat had already tightened. "No support," she continued. "No calls, no birthdays. Not even a text when I sent him photos. I tracked him for a while, but he changes numbers more than most people change socks. Still, I didn't move. I'm not here for him," she added quickly. "I'm not even here for me." She reached into the plastic sleeve tucked into her tote bag and pulled out a photo. Not a printed one, just a small, worn-out snapshot, probably printed at a pharmacy years ago. She held it out without saying anything. The kid couldn't have been more than 4. Big eyes, dimpled chin, something tight in the smile, like he wasn't sure if he should trust the camera. "He has Derek's mouth," I said before I could stop myself. She nodded. "And his stubbornness." I stared at the photo for a second longer than I wanted to. Then I handed it back. "I only found out about you because someone forwarded me a link," she said. "Your post. The one about the situation. I guess someone thought we should connect." "I didn't write that for attention," I murmured. "I know." Her voice softened, just slightly. "But it reached the right people." Another pause. "I don't know what you're supposed to do with this," she admitted. "Maybe nothing. But I figured if my kid's going to grow up asking who his father is, he should also know what his father wasn't. And that includes what he left behind." She looked me in the eye then. Steady. Exhausted. But not broken. "He'll want answers one day. And maybe you'll have some I won't." Something shifted in me. I didn't know this boy. But I'd been him. Left behind. Written off. And I knew too well how silence could grow claws when left to fester. "You ever tell him?" I asked. "About me?" She shook her head. "Not yet. I didn't want to make promises I couldn't keep." I looked down at the floor, thought of Emma, of her hand on the window glass, of my own reflection in her eyes. "Do you want to come in?" She hesitated, looked past me into the dark hallway, as if trying to measure the temperature of what she was walking into. "No," she said finally. "I just needed to know you were real." She turned to go, umbrella lifting slowly, awkwardly, like it didn't want to open anymore. I called out after her, "What's his name?" She paused at the bottom of the steps, didn't turn around. "Caleb." I nodded, committed it to memory like a secret. She disappeared into the rain, and I stood there letting the cold come in through the open door, wondering how many people Derek had scattered behind him like wreckage, wondering how many were still waiting for someone to show up and care. I closed the door slowly, but not all the way, and that night I couldn't sleep. Not because of the knock, but because something inside me had shifted again. The kind of shift that doesn't make noise but leaves the floor uneven. The kind that tells you you're not done yet. It was mid-afternoon when I saw his car, parked halfway onto the curb in front of the community center, like he couldn't even be bothered to park straight. I watched him through the window, frozen. He didn't knock this time. He just opened the door like it still belonged to him. "You told her?" His voice echoed through the hall. The front desk staff looked up, startled, but I shook my head to signal I had it under control. Whatever this was going to be, it had waited too long already. I stepped out of the office and closed the door behind me. I didn't tell her anything she didn't already know. "You posted. You let her find you. You wanted her to come." "I didn't write it for her," I said. "But if the truth hurts that much, maybe you're the one with the problem." He was already red in the face. Not embarrassment. Rage. the kind he'd always held back just enough to keep himself safe. But today he wasn't hiding it. She told you about the kid, didn't she? She didn't have to. I kept my voice even. He has your face, he scoffed. You don't know what it's like having people use you for everything. She trapped me. You wouldn't get it. No, I said. I wouldn't. Because I don't walk away when things get inconvenient. That did it. His jaw twitched. You're still the same pathetic little shadow. You think you've grown up, but you're still hiding behind other people. Jasmine, that little girl, the CEO. You've never fought your own fights. Something inside me snapped. I fought every day in that house, I said. You just never saw it, because you were too busy being the reason for it. He stepped closer. I should have finished it when we were kids. I could smell the anger on him, something sharp and spoiled. His breath hitched just before he moved. I didn't have time to think. His hand flew first. I ducked. And then my fist connected. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't clean. But it landed. The sound was sharp, knuckle meeting bone, and his body reeled back like he hadn't expected it. Not from me. He stumbled against the wall, clutching his jaw. You hit me? His voice cracked. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He looked up, dazed. You hit me. You're right, I said quietly. That's something I never did before. For a moment, all the air in the hallway stood still. No footsteps, no voices, just our breathing and the sound of rain building again outside. He didn't say another word, just stared at me, like I'd become something he no longer understood. Not weak, not afraid, just done. I stepped past him toward the door. No rush, no fear. He called after me, voice lower now, unsure. You think you're better than me? No, I said, hand on the doorknob. Just different. And that's enough. I stepped into the rain and let it wash the heat from my skin. My hand stung. Not from guilt, from impact. I didn't regret it. I didn't even feel triumph. What I felt was quiet. The kind that doesn't scream for justice, just breathes relief. For the first time in my life, I didn't walk away because I was scared. I walked away because I was free. The folder sat on the table between us like it carried weight beyond paper. I slid it across to Ethan. Neither of us said anything for a moment. The room was quiet, the way rooms get when something about to be said can't be unsaid. He opened it carefully, read the first few lines. His expression shifted. This is the old school report? I nodded. Mrs. Barkley kept it all these years. He kept reading. This isn't nothing. It shows a pattern. Emotional neglect, witnessed aggression, school-level concern, never acted on. And now this, I said, handing him a printout. Derek's real name, the sealed plea deal, the false employment history, Jasmine's statement, and Emma's situation. He looked up slowly. You sure you want to do this? I'm not trying to ruin anyone's life, I said. I hesitated. I just don't want anyone else dragged into theirs. Ethan exhaled. Then we send it. And we did. A week later, the message came. Short, formal. From the CEO himself. The same man who used to bring my mom coffee during her chemo treatments and sit with her in the garden like he had nowhere else to be. David, I've received everything. Thank you for your honesty. I'm pursuing full legal action. Derek and your father have been terminated, effective immediately. If you ever need anything, my door is open. It didn't feel like victory. Not exactly. But something shifted. A door had closed. One that had slammed on me more times than I could count. And this time, I was the one holding the key. Emma's mom called 2 days later. Her voice was trembling. He wired the money, she whispered. Every cent of the back support. I think it's over. I didn't answer right away. I was watching Emma draw on the porch. A bird again. Always a bird. Thank you, she said. You did what no one else could. Not long after, I got a text from Jasmine. He won't come near us again. Whatever you did, it worked. I didn't think anyone would stand up to him. You didn't have to, but you did. I stared at her words for a long time. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't even sure I was whole. But I knew what it felt like to be forgotten. I couldn't let it happen to someone else. Not while I was still standing. She sat cross-legged on the rug, sketchbook open, crayons scattered like a soft explosion. The lamp beside her buzzed faintly. Rain tapped the window, just enough to make the world feel smaller. Do you think Dad was a bad guy? She asked without looking up. I paused mid-stir, her tea steeping quietly behind me. That question had an edge, not the kind that cuts, but the kind that lingers. I said slowly, he made a lot of bad choices, ones that hurt people. She nodded like she already knew. But people who make bad choices, they're not always bad. I walked over, sat beside her, handed her the mug. No, but it matters what you do after. She took a sip, then pointed at her newest sketch. Two birds this time, side by side on a wire. One with a broken wing, the other leaning in close. I want to be the one that helps people fly again, she said. I smiled. You already are. Later that night, after she fell asleep on the couch with her head resting on my arm, I saw the folded paper tucked in the corner of her sketchbook. A note written in shaky pencil. You're the big brother I was wishing for. I didn't cry. Not then. But when I turned off the lights, I left the door cracked, just enough for the hallway glow to reach inside, just enough in case someone small and brave needed help finding her way through the dark.